He's sometimes acclaimed as the Gandhi of West Africa. He was a man of many parts, a civil engineer, a surveyor by training, a civil servant, a politician, an editor, a journalist, an accomplished violinist, a historian, and wait for it, an ex-convict, the founding father of Nigeria's nationalism. He helped to lay the foundation of modern Nigeria and contributed to the shaping of popular perceptions of a modern nation and its obligations to the public. In addition, he maintained an abiding interest in the history and concerns of black people throughout the world. Herbert Olayinka Samuel Healers Badmus Macaulay. That's a mouthful, right? He was born in Lagos on the 14th of November 1864 to Thomas Babington Macaulay and Abigail Crowther, children of people captured from what is now present-day Nigeria and resettled in Sierra Leone by the British West African Squadron and eventual returnees to Nigeria. Thomas Babington Macaulay was one of the sons of Ojo Oraire, while Abigail Crowther was the daughter of Bishop Samuel Ajayi Crowther, a descendant of King Abiodun. Thomas Babington Macaulay was the founder of the first secondary school in Nigeria, the CMS Grammar School, Lagos, between 1869 and 1877. Macaulay attended Breadfruit School, Lagos, and Faji School, Lagos, for his elementary education from 1877 to October 1880. He attended CMS Grammar School, Lagos, for his secondary school after going to a Christian missionary school. From childhood, young Herbert Macaulay learned the importance of a sound education, patriotism, and of course Christian values. However, his grandparents and parents also believed in the importance of indigenous Yoruba cultural values and of working within the larger culture around them. Like many later Pan-Africanists, they advocated the intelligent selection of progressive values and institutions from westernized Christianity and African society. Coming from such a family, he must have experienced a lot of pressure to enter the clergy, but he rejected this career in favor of a more worldly career. He took a job as a clerk at the Lagos Department of Public Works in 1881. In July 1890, the government sent him abroad for further training under G.D. Bellamy of Plymouth. 3 years later, he qualified as a civil engineer, the first Nigerian in this profession. On his return to Lagos, the government made him a surveyor of crown lands in Lagos. However, he soon became dissatisfied with the conditions of his employment. Like many of his African colleagues, he hated the two-tier system then existed in government service, whereby British civil servants enjoyed better conditions and much higher salaries than Africans. Thus, in 1898, Macaulay decided to go into private practice as a licensed surveyor and architect. His practice, however, was not very successful. Constantly in financial distress, he took advantage of his position as executor of the estate of a family dependent from which he misappropriated funds. Unfortunately, this act became known to the authorities and he was tried and sentenced to 2 years imprisonment. While many sympathized with him because of the extenuating circumstances of his large extended family, this event meant that he could never become a candidate for public office. Now, barred from elective public office, Macaulay made his mark in politics through journalism and political organizations in various advisory capacities. Between 1890 and 1927, he was a frequent contributor to the Nigerian Chronicle. In 1927, Macaulay joined forces with his friend Dr. John Akilade Colcrick, a physician and politician, to buy the Lagos Daily News, the first daily newspaper in British West Africa, founded in 1925. Macaulay decided on political tone of the paper. This provided his platform for his battles against the government and his African political opponents. During the 1920s, a period in Nigerian history associated with the beginning of political agitation for self-rule, Macaulay became a leading figure in the first generation of Nigerian nationalists. In 1921, Macaulay passionately led protests in Lagos over water rates, land issues, and mishandling of railway finances. In 1922, he helped a Lagos chief in his legal battle with the colonial government, who had forcefully taken some of his land for government purposes. The highest court in England heard the case and returned the land to the chief. This victory inspired Macaulay to establish in 1923 Nigeria's first political party, the Nigerian National Democratic Party, whose members were the first to sit in the Legislative Council. The NNDP was the first well-organized political party in Commonwealth West Africa. Its motto was Salus Populi Suprema Lex. The safety of the people is the greatest law. Its candidates won all the elective seats in the Nigerian legislature between 1923 and 1938. For fear that government might take action against him, Macaulay refused to hold any party office until 1930s. But in Lagos, there was no doubt that he was the driving force and real power behind the scenes. He maintained close ties with the first executive councils and was always present at NNDP public meetings. Further, he had extensive links with the masses of Lagosians through their traditional popular associations, particularly the Market Women Union and many vocational unions. He encouraged market women and elite women to take part in party activities, including speaking at its meetings. In 1931, relations with Macaulay and the British began to improve up to the point that the governor held conferences with Macaulay. In October 1938, the more radical Nigerian youth movement fought and won elections for the Lagos Town Councils, ending the dominance of Macaulay and his National Democratic Party. In order to avoid the demise of the party, Macaulay's NNDP joined forces with the Nigerian youth movement to form the National Council of Nigeria and the Cameroons, NCNC. The NCNC, led by Macaulay, was not set out to be a political party. It was more of a nationalist organization designed to advocate for an independent Nigeria. In August 1944, however, he saw the leadership and strategy of the National Council of Nigeria and Cameroons, NCNC, offered brilliant prospects in the struggle for self-government. Although many of his colleagues in the NNDP executive disagreed with him, he carried the day when he threatened to resign if they did not agree to enter into a coalition of interest groups. Nnamdi Azikiwe, the dynamic leader of the NCNC then, capitalized on Macaulay's decision to join the party. At this time, Macaulay was 80 years old, but still appeared physically strong and mentally alert. But his insistence in undertaking a strenuous campaign against the constitutional proposals of 1945 proposed by Governor Richards taxed his strength. While on the national tour, he suffered an acute attack of rheumatism and was forced to return to Lagos, where he died on 7th of May 1946. Huge crowds, estimated variously between 100,000 and 200,000, turned out in the streets to mourn, and all the markets closed for 2 full days. The leadership of the NCNC went to Azikiwe, who later became the first president of Nigeria. Macaulay was buried at Ikoyi Cemetery in Lagos on 11th of May 1946. Nnamdi Azikiwe delivered a funeral oration at Macaulay's burial ceremony. As is customary among the Yoruba, when a distinguished leader dies at an advanced age, his funeral became the occasion for a prolonged celebration of a life well lived and public service well acclaimed. He was survived by 2 children, Sarah Abigail Ido Macaulay and Oliver Ogedengbe Macaulay.
Personality profile. Now you know.
Talk radio. I listen to a lot of talk radio.
Every day, every hour. When the big stories break, depend on our 24-hour news team to bring you the latest. Today, 95.1 FM. Whether it's happening in Port Harcourt, South, Nigeria, or around the world, we've got you covered. On air, online, delivering balanced news and unbiased analysis. Today, 95.1 FM.
This is Today, 95.1 FM, Port Harcourt. News.
This is the World News on your premium talk radio. Today, 95.1 FM, Port Harcourt. I am Gloria Karibi Tumbury. We'll start with the headlines. Stakeholders in petroleum downstream sector calls for dialogue with federal government to end fuel scarcity. NLC and TUC call for end of fuel subsidy. INEC concludes plans to meet with NCC ahead of 2023 election. On the foreign scene, South Korea arrests former National Security Advisor. Now the details. The All Progressives Congress in Rivers State has described the passage of the Appropriate Bill 2023 by the Rivers State House of Assembly as ridiculously hasty. The state APC, through its spokesperson, Darlington Wauju, noted that this has made the Appropriation Act 2023 a document that lacks the fundamental ingredients of collective decision-making, adding that it cannot be said to be a people's budget. The main opposition party in the state noted that the budget should be democratic, fair, accountable, transparent, and strategic. The party further questioned the procedure for nomination of projects captured in the budget.
We query how the peoples of the 23 local government areas were carried along in decision making as to which of the projects captured in the budget will be cited in which areas. We query the budget performance of 2022, which the 2023 budget should actually be a follow-up of the 2022 budget. Something as important as the budget of a state should not get a sort of poor visibility and accessibility that ours has been getting in the past 7 years of the Wike administration. And unfortunately, the very last budget of this administration has suffered the same fate of opaqueness and elitism. Well, the 2023 budget document of Rivers State, therefore, to our mind, is unaccountable, is non-transparent, and deceitful. It's only targeting at opening up for the wealth of Rivers State to be misappropriated.
The Nigeria Medical Association has called on the Rivers State House of Assembly to enact a law that will ban the sale and marketing of pharmaceutical products and concoctions in unauthorized places. Chairman of NMA Rivers State, Dr. A.B. Robinson, who made the call during the commissioning of the Renal Center at the Rivers State University Teaching Hospital, noted that the sale of these drugs have contributed to the prevalence of renal diseases. The NMA state chairman said the ban on the sales and marketing of these products will control and reduce the prevalence of renal diseases.
Renal diseases prevalence is about 10.1% globally, and national data shows that it's about 16% in Rivers State. To Excellency, I want to mention that the surge in renal diseases cannot be overemphasized because there are a lot of pharmacological products and concoctions being sold everywhere in the motor parks, in the taxis, even in churches. These have contributed immensely to the prevalence of renal diseases that we are presently seeing. And therefore, Your Excellency, I want to crave your indulgence to please let the House of Assembly make laws to prevent the marketing and sales of pharmacological products in the churches, in the parks, and in buses. This will, as a method of prevention, control and reduce the prevalence of renal diseases.
Renal disease is a condition in which the kidneys stop working and are not able to remove waste and extra water from the blood or keep body chemicals in balance. With only 8 years left to the 2030 goal to ending HIV/AIDS, the World Health Organization has called on the Rivers State government to close the inequality gaps in the progress towards ending AIDS. WHO representative in River State, Dr. Bosede Ezekwe, said that inequality in the access to the most basic prevention service for HIV and AIDS has persisted. Ezekwe, who was represented by Dr. Sadiq Abubakar, therefore noted that there is need for coordinated action to stop the pandemic by focusing on the population being left behind. The international body made the call at an event organized by the River State government to commemorate the World AIDS Day.
4 decades into HIV response, inequalities persist for the most basic services like testing and treatment. HIV prevention programs reach only 40% of adolescent girls and young women. Only 1 in 3 key population who are particularly vulnerable to HIV have regular access to HIV prevention services. The group includes sex workers, men who have sex with men, people who inject drugs, people in prison and detention, and transgender people. With only 8 years left to the 2030 goal of ending AIDS as global health threat, coordinated action is required to stop this pandemic with a precise focus to reach those most affected, especially children, adolescent girls, women, and key population. I urge the government and partners to close the inequality gaps in the progress towards ending AIDS by focusing on populations that are being left behind.
More details on the circumstances that led to the death of Olurunsho Michael, popularly known as Yemi the Plug, have emerged. A neighbor to the deceased, who claimed to have driven the late Yemi the Plug to the hospital, told Today FM's Ifunanya Obimundukwe that Yemi was still alive at the time they got him to the hospital. The neighbor, who did not want to be named, alleged that the nurse who confirmed Yemi dead did so from a distance without proper examination.
Rushed to the hospital. I was still constantly asking the people in the back seat with him if they could feel his pulse. They said yes. On getting to the hospital, so they know it was an emergency. I started blowing my horn even way before I even got to the front of the emergency ward. And one guy came out, he was on nose masks and hoodie, so I couldn't really see his face. He came out and was like, they don't allow people to blow horn in the hospital. I'm like, if it's not an emergency, I won't blow my horn for it. And one nurse came out first. She didn't really even go close to the car. Just stayed there, looked at him, and this guy is dead. And we're like, you didn't even check him, you didn't go close to him, you just say he's dead. And she walked into the hospital. In the process of she going into the hospital, the other guys with me, they went to get wheelchair. So we struggled to put him on the wheelchair, took him to the hospital.
So getting downstairs now, I saw him gasping for breath. So we tried to revive him. They'd already poured water and all of that. So I said, this thing is beyond, let's take him to the hospital. It was just us that did everything, none of the nurses.
The neighbor further said the mother of the deceased, who is also a health practitioner, arrived at the scene some minutes later and attempted to revive her son, but it was too late. Some other neighbors corroborated the story of what happened that night.
As we got into the hospital, the doctor and some other nurses, I believe, yes, they were just coming out at that point. Then me, I turned back, like I couldn't see, I couldn't stand aside. I just turned back and like walked out of the hospital. Then I saw his mom pulling. When his mom came in, she walked in and like she first started querying there, like, why didn't you give them immediately attention? Why did you see? I was still mute at that point. Then she just took matter into her hands and like took him into consultant's room. Then the mom was basically the one that took charge of the whole trying to revive him, because we were still looking for the suction machine. He came in later, but at that point, I won't lie, I knew, I've lost a friend.
A time of 4:10 to 4:26 is enough time to save a life. That's having an asthma attack. Her reaction was the only word I heard her say that, where are the nurses in this hospital? Where are the nurses on duty? I'm going to query you people.
In the meantime, the management of University of Port Harcourt Teaching Hospital had released a statement through its public relations officer, Elaba Meni, stating that preliminary reports show that Yemi the Plug was brought to the hospital dead. The hospital management has, however, revealed that it has commenced investigation into the matter, with a committee already set up to unravel what happened on November 29. Before his death, Yemi the Plug was a popular social media influencer in Port Harcourt and was also a graduate of the University of Port Harcourt. Stakeholders in the petroleum downstream sector have revealed that the situation at the depots in River State has remained chaotic, with only 2 depots serving the marketers in the state and beyond. Speaking on the reasons for the persistent fuel scarcity in River State and the country at large, River State Chairman of the Petroleum Product Retail Outlet Owners Association of Nigeria, Francis Dingpa, in an interview with TFM's Ifunanya Obimundukwe, noted that the challenge lies between the federal government and depot owners. Dimpa said the situation requires the federal government and depot owners to have a talk to address the lingering issue and bring in Petron into the arrangement.
The current situation at the depots in Rivers State is quite hectic. As I speak with you, it's not even a matter of paying for your product to load, it's to be able to load out. In fact, it's not anything to write home about. Presently, it's just about 1 or 2 depots that are loading in Port Harcourt, and you can imagine the whole world gathering in just those 2 holes. It's not just only a challenge of depot owners or retailers. It's a challenge of government, depot owners, and everybody. We already know why these things are going up. It's taking a toll on their pockets, and so they are not able to sell for us at the price for which they promise government that they are going to sell. It calls for the government and the depot owners to sit down and reconcile these issues and bring in Petron into the arrangement.
Dimpa, however, reiterated that the permanent solution to the perennial fuel scarcity in the country is the removal of fuel subsidy, setting up of modular refineries, and the rehabilitation of the existing refineries in the country.
It is obviously clear that the permanent solution to this issue of fuel scarcity is the removal of fuel subsidy and the setting up of modular refineries, as well as refurbishing our existing refineries. These 3 issues are the permanent solutions to this perennial fuel scarcity, and the federal government is being encouraged to bring in Petron and other stakeholders to the table for the discussion and implementation of this 3 solution plan for the permanent solution to this perennial fuel scarcity. The fixing of existing refineries and the stopping of the Hydra-headed fuel subsidy regime.
Meanwhile, the Nigeria Labour Congress and Trade Union Congress have urged the federal government to put an end to the fuel shortages and price hikes in the country. The position of the unions was contained in a statement by the presidents of NLC and the TUC, Ayuba Waba and Festus Osifo. They said that the fuel shortages, price hikes, and avoidable long queues in filling stations are unacceptable and no longer tolerable. Their statement noted that the opportunity cost of the subsidy payment was enormous, and yet the benefit of the subsidy regime is gradually being eroded. The statement said that organized labor is ready and willing to engage the federal government and assist in all ways possible to overcome the country's present challenges, as it called on the regulatory and law enforcement agencies to do more to protect Nigerians from exploitation. The Academic Staff Union of University is set to hold a quarterly National Executive Council meeting at the University of Calabar tomorrow. This was confirmed to newsmen by a member of the NEC. ASU had suspended its strike on 14th of October, but the lecturers were paid half salaries for the month and the remaining month's salaries withheld. The federal government said the payment was on a pro rata basis, as the union only suspended the strike 2 weeks into the month. But ASU protested, accusing the government of casualizing the work of the academics. Despite protest and the intervention of the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, the federal government has insisted it would not shift ground on implementing the no work, no pay policy. The decision of the government to withhold the salaries of lecturers had led to a series of protests across the country, with some branches of the union calling for the sack of the Minister of Education, Adamu, and the Minister of Labour and Employment, Chris Ngige. The union, however, confirmed that its members received full salaries for the month of November 2022. This is the World News on Today 95.1 FM, Port Harcourt, Voice of the People. After the short break, we'll bring you more news, sport, and foreign stories. Stay tuned.
Every day, every hour, when the big stories break, depend on our 24-hour news team to bring you the latest. Today, 95.1 FM.
15 minutes past 10, and welcome back to the World News. The Independent National Electoral Commission has concluded plans to meet with the Nigerian Communications Commission on Tuesday. The move is part of an effort to strengthen plans for electronic transmission of results in the 2023 general elections. The INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, said this during a one-day strategic interactive meeting with line editors in Lagos State. Yakubu added that the meeting would include chief executives of the 4 major telecommunication operators in the country. He noted that the commission already had 2 years' experience transmitting results in real time from polling units, having commenced on August 8, 2020. The Nigeria Railway Corporation will resume the Abuja-Kaduna passenger train service on Monday, with only 2 return services. This was contained in a statement sent to newsmen by the managing director of the NRC, Fidet Okiria. The NRC management also revealed that as part of the new security measures, it is now mandatory for passengers to present their national identity number and valid boarding ticket before they will be allowed to board. It also says the purchase of tickets by proxy is only limited to minors and a specified number of adult passengers. Recall that the NRC suspended train service along the route after Boko Haram terrorists attacked a moving passenger train in Kaduna on March 18, 2022. The insurgent had blown up the rail track and bombed the moving train, killing some passengers and abducting more than 60 passengers. An estimated 736 women have been subjected to intimate partner violence, non-partner sexual violence, or both in life globally. This is according to the African Women Lawyers Association, River State branch, to mark the annual global campaign of 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. River State coordinator of the African Women Lawyers Association, Hilda Desmond E. Kaire, told Today95.1fm that the global campaign calls for more action to prevent and end violence against women by breaking down barriers that rob women of their power. Desmond E. Kaire, who expressed worry that most women end up with health-related issues, stressed that the theme for 2022, Unite Activism to End Violence Against Women and Girls, calls for total emancipation of women.
The figure does not include sexual harassment. The rates of depression, anxiety disorder, unplanned pregnancy, sexually transmitted infections are alarmingly high, with higher rates of HIV in women who have experienced violence as against women who have not, including health problems that can last even after the violence has ended. There are hundreds of untold stories. Nonetheless, today we join the outcry and voices of all and sundry who are concerned about the deplorable, unjust, inhuman, and unfair practices that have subjected our mothers, daughters, and sisters to the lives contrary to simple human existence. It is not a crime to be a woman. We are divinely crafted, and the truth is the world is incomplete without the feminine touch.
Desmond Ikaire further called on government at all levels to implement laws prohibiting gender-based violence and harmful practices against women and girls.
There are beautiful laws passed by our legislature, both federal and state, prohibiting these practices and prescribing punishments, but never implemented. The ball is in the court of our government at all levels and stakeholders to take a bold step to protect women in line with international best practices. I therefore call on government at different levels to do an assessment on the status of their legislative and policy frameworks and their implementation to address harmful practices against women. I also call on states that are yet to pass the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Law to do so immediately.
16 days of activism against gender-based violence is an annual international campaign that kicks off on November 25 to end violence against women and runs through December 10 every year. On the foreign scene, a former South Korean national security advisor has been arrested on suspicion of covering up the case of a fisheries official killed by North Korean troops. Suhoon denies destroying evidence that explained the fatal shooting of Lee Dae-jung at sea in 2020. At the time, it was reported he was killed trying to defect to North Korea over gambling debts and personal issues. But prosecutors and his family say there is little evidence for this. The case has sparked a political row. The current government accuses the previous government of seeking to curry favor with North Korea as it was attempting to improve ties. The South Korean Defense Ministry said at the time, Lee, a 47-year-old father of 2, was on a patrol boat about 10 kilometers from the border with the North, near the island of Yongpyong when he disappeared in September 2020. In sports, Brazilian striker Gabriel Jesus and defender Alex Telles will miss the rest of the World Cup matches in Qatar after picking up knee injuries in the final Group G game against Cameroon. This was made known by the country's Football Association Confederation of Brazil Football today ahead of the knockout matches. Telles was substituted in the 54th minute of Brazil's 1-0 defeat by the African side, with Arsenal striker Jesus leaving the pitch 10 minutes later. World Cup favourites Brazil will face South Korea in the last 16 on Monday. Neymar is still recovering from an ankle injury suffered in their opening win against Serbia. They have only one fullback available after left-back Telles' injury in the Cameroon game. That's it on the world news at this hour on Today 95.1 FM. To end the news, here is a summary of the major stories. Stakeholders in the petroleum downstream sector have called for dialogue with the federal government to end fuel scarcity. NLC and TUC have called for an end to fuel subsidy in Nigeria. You heard that INEC has concluded plans to meet with an NCC ahead of the 2023 election. And on the foreign scene, we told you that South Korea has arrested a former national security advisor. That was the news as edited by Ifunanya Ubimbe Undekwe. For comments and inquiries, please call 081-838-92850 or send your emails to news@todayfmlive.com. You can also read our stories on www.todayfmlive.com. I am Gloria Karibi Tombre. Good evening, many thanks for listening. Good night.
Today's news, today's entertainment, today's sports, today's issues. Today on Today 95.1 FM, Port Harcourt.
This is Today 95.1 FM. To copy this tune, press 9.
This is Today 95.1 FM.
For current news and information, press 5.
They are politicians, all of them. They know what they do.
So they know how they attack each other.
To stay connected all day, press 1.
The person who raised the alarm is the one who made the public know about
it. Good afternoon and welcome to the World News on your Premium Talk Radio station.
We are your Premium Talk Radio station. Today 95.1 FM. The station with a unique dial.
Everybody, it's so great to have you back this week. I'm super excited.
You're just super.
Wait, I'm super and I'm super excited.
And like my internet brothers will say, what's up guys? My name is Jamal Roberts and today we will find out the difference between mental health and mental illness. A little bit about the ASO strike as it affects the students and many more. So just stay tuned. This is the program Talk Your Own, Make Naija Better.
Talk your own.
Talk your own.
Talk your own.
ASU don't finally call off strike.
Yes, so let the celebrations begin.
You know, sometimes I just sit down and think, like, what were these students thinking?
Yeah.
How did it affect them? I mean, the strike, staying at home.
Especially when it comes to their mental health.
Especially that. So, we went to the street to ask a couple of students how it was for them, especially as it has to do with their mental health. And this is the feedback we got.
My name is Lubabat Ali Sambu from Bayero University, Kano. I am psychologically and emotionally stable.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Zainab Mokhtar Shehu, a student of Bayero University, Kano. Yes, like this strike affected me in many ways As a final year student striving to graduate, it hasn't been easy throughout because I'm done with my thesis. I have even started writing my project, and I was about to start my first semester final exams, which I have been reading for almost all my life, I swear. Because wallahi, every day after Subhi prayer, I will leave my hostel to go and read. But now, wallahi, I can't even remember all the courses I registered for.
My name is Mohammed Umar Muazu, 500 legal general agri student, University of Maiduguri. For people like other students who have side hustle, they go to business activities, but people like me who always stays indoors for a long period of time studying books, so I technically said I was not in a stable mental mind.
My name is Abdurrahman Yusuf Uba. What I will say is that the situation is not good at all, because keeping someone that is on our age without doing anything in the name of strike, definitely even his brain is thinking positively, definitely will turn to think negatively, because there is no any work that is given for that brain. Then the brain will search for work by itself.
So now only one person talk say this thing not to touch and like that.
Yes, so
hard guy.
Yes, so hard guy, like I'm a boss.
I believe your government.
Yes, so even the other person talk say she don't forget the courses
Some of the
where
courses,
she studied.
yeah.
Can you imagine?
No worry. Maybe you don't go back to school. You will refresh.
You will know.
But if you were at home for that long, how would you have felt?
I mean, for me, I always find ways to keep myself busy. For the few times I've been affected by something like this, I decided to either learn something new, to learn new ways to make money. I mean, as to you ain't got none on me.
Oh, now they have three
Yes.
academic staff units.
Speaking of mental health, did you know that according to the latest statistic from the World Health Organization, 1 out of every 4 Nigerians are dealing with a mental illness? Did you know that?
No, I had no idea.
So that explains Lagos people.
Oh wow, the shade. Okay, please, Lagos people, I don't wash my own comments for this shade. I have nothing to do with it. And guess what? The 10th of October every year is set aside as the World Mental Health Day to raise awareness of mental health issues around the world and to mobilize efforts in support of mental health. I think every Nigerian needs to reevaluate their mental health.
Actually. Talk Your Own reporter Sumaya Ibrahim was in Jos, and she met Dr. Kingsley Mayowa Okonoda, a senior lecturer at Department of Psychiatry, University of Jos, and consultant psychiatrist, Jos University Teaching Hospital, Jos, Plateau State. She asked him to explain mental health and how important it is in Nigeria.
Okay, WHO define mental health as the state of well-being in which the individual is able to realize his or her own potentials or actualize them cope with normal stresses of life, work productively, and make contribution to his or her society. So when you look at that definition, you see mental health is not talking about illness yet. It's talking about ability to live life to the optimal and then to be productive. So why do we need to take it seriously? Because if you are not mentally healthy, for example, even you will not be doing this job. You will not be able to cope with life. Your relationship will be strenuous or scattered, and you will not be able to be effective. You need to be mentally healthy to be able to live life productively. So we should take it very seriously. Now, from the definition I've given you, you see that I didn't talk about illness. Yes. However, when there's a deviation from this mental health, we might have mental health challenges in which the person is not really having an illness yet, but is having challenges coping with life. Now, when people like that are seen and you say, okay, you need to take your mental health seriously, maybe see a psychologist, see a psychiatrist, the first thing they will tell you, are you saying I'm mad? So some of the misconceptions that are there is that people believe that once you are talking about